Jes Machuca is a qualified counsellor, ACA member, and founder of Journey with Jes, an online counselling practice supporting people through chronic illness, grief, miscarriage and infant loss, and life's unexpected challenges.
Drawing on both professional training and her own experience living with lipedema, Jes is passionate about helping people feel less alone in their struggles.
Her approach combines genuine understanding, compassion, and practical support, creating a space where clients can be themselves without judgment. Welcome back to the Lipoedema Podcast. We are your hosts, Shell
And Tiana, and today we have a special guest with lived experience that is also now a counsellor for the lipedema community. It is Jes Machuca. Hi, Jes. Thank you for joining us.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me back.
It's our pleasure. So we're going to get straight into it, Jes. When you look back over your life, what were the early moments of feelings that made you realize your body was asking for a different kind of understanding?
Yeah, I think it was a false sense of control that I thought I could manage, and that if I just did everything right, that I would somehow be fine. And then I think, with the pushing and the starving and the monitoring and the burpees and all of those things that I was doing to try to control this thing that I didn't really know was happening, it didn't work. And then I felt like a failure. In not just my body was failing, but I felt like a failure. So it wasn't just about feeling unattractive and sore. It was also like a character failure. And I think that's one of those moments where I realized later on that it needed a bit more attention in a softer way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we end up becoming those chronic people pleasers too, don't we? Because we think that if we can make everybody happy and make sure their needs are met, then we're fulfilling our love of ourselves in some weird way as well.
Yeah, and not taking up space, because when you live with a chronic illness, whether you have the diagnosis and you knew already, or you're living with it and not realizing or having words for it, you get sick of hearing your own pain. You wake up in the morning, it's another thing, and it's another thing, and it's another thing. And you hate the sound of it. You get sick of yourself. So then you tend to become a little smaller because you don't want to be the one complaining again. And you tend to hide, shield, fake, pretend, laugh, smile, cover up the bits, and it weighs heavily, pun intended.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good pun.
Absolutely. Yeah. So how did receiving, or when you were seeking your lipedema diagnosis, shift the way you saw yourself, your body, or like your story? Like how did that change?
There was a lot of validation. I think, you hear that from most of the women who have lipedema diagnosis, that like there is a sense of like, it wasn't me, like that's so good that it wasn't me failing, the character flaw kind of thing, that if I had have just done this and this, that it would have worked. Like actually, most of us did do all of the things and still didn't work. So I think there was a validation side of it that was like a confirmation I wasn't a personal failure. But I have a chronic illness that it doesn't matter what I do, it's here to stay. Like we can manage it, yes, we can make things a little better, blah, blah, blah. But there's no cure. There's no magic wand. You're going to be stuck with this. That was a little claustrophobic, to put it in a weird way, like to feel like, okay, but yeah, there isn't really much I can, this is it. So I think the both the elated, it's not me, but then, oh my gosh, grief, it's here to stay. That was, hard to kind of reconcile the two. But yeah.
So once you got your lipedema diagnosis, like there's a lot of symptoms and emotions that we need to navigate. Like what worked for you, and what are some things that you got insight from?
Something that kind of stuck with me was the really uncomfortable truth that two things in opposition can be true. I hate that. I don't want things to fit into a perfect box. And when two things that are oppositional are true, that's really hard to sit with. So I think I'm so grateful for how my body works and how I have been able to navigate through and get all the information and have the support and all of those things. There's a lot of gratitude there.
So Jes, at what point did your personal experience drive you to support other women living with lipedema?
Yeah, I think in my own journey with this, with figuring out from diagnosis all the way, as you in the previous podcast talked about how I've had surgeries as well. Through the whole thing, I came to realize that there was so much emphasis that I was putting on trying to support my body and making sure that I decided the correct treatments and the correct this and what garments and what diets and what exercises and what surgeon and what this and what that I think there was just so much emphasis placed on that and a lot of decision fatigue and a lot of anxiety about do I get this right or wrong. Plus there was the whole, you might talk to a professional who you think is a professional who's known nothing about it. And then you get gaslit along the way. And then, all of these things compounded financial stress that I think I got into a little bit of a vortex, sucked into this vortex of like making sure everything was right and trying to control it. But I don't think I really gave much attention to the mental health side of it because it felt secondary. Like, yeah. Well, I won't stress as much once I figure this out, or I won't feel once this happens. But during was rough. It was rough. And, just because I'm a counselor doesn't mean life doesn't affect me and doesn't mean
Totally.
I've got it all figured out and that I've got this perfect attitude constantly. Like, we're all just people trying to figure this crap out. So I think along the way, there were moments where I wished I could talk to someone who understood, but not just as a peer kind of thing, but someone who's lived the experience, but also who understood from a more professional way that I could get assistance. And there was, for compression garments, for diets and for, so that was all available. And to be honest, I didn't know of anyone that had the lived experience with the surgeries to guide me through and to even know what to expect or how to deal with what came next. So I think the diagnosis was rough and not knowing how to place those two things together, grief and validation, and then going through the decision fatigue and the burden of what the hell do I do with it now, the pressures that I faced. And then surgery I had it in my head. You be tough, you get through, you're going to have medication, you're going to deal with the scar. Like you are going to, had all the things to support me through the healing of my body. But I just thought, well, if pain management is there, then I should be fine. I'll be great. And I will be really happy in the end because the solution, has arrived. But things that stood out to me, which was really surprising, was, if you lose weight, if you go on a diet and you lose weight, which is, who has that? Not the luxury of lipedema people, but it's a gradual process where you go from a certain size and you see yourself slowly getting smaller. You wake up out of surgery and, I had one leg done at a time. And then you've got all of a sudden, like you are knocked out and what feels like the next second, you wake up and you've got a completely different leg. And that's like, what? Like, that. That's why you spent the money. That's why you're there. That's why you had the surgery. But their kind of realization of looking down and seeing something that doesn't feel like it's you, and then having your normal chunky leg, and then you got your little stick feeling leg because you've never seen your leg be that thin. So it's like, what the hell is that? And the disassociation of like, who am I? Am I the girl, like, is this who I'm supposed to be pre-disease or, without disease, without illness? Or am I just the girl who has the illness? Like, and how do you reconcile? So that played with me. Plus all the meds and all the things that does to your head as well. So there was no one that understood, that I knew, that I could talk to. And I, tried to reach out to some of the girls on the Facebook group and who'd had surgeries to see what their experiences were. Everyone's experience is different, obviously, and mine's going to be different to the next. But I also felt like sometimes I had the feeling, I don't want to be annoying. I don't want to be reaching out. What if they didn't feel like this? What if I'm being perceived as not grateful because I do, or, so I hesitated. And we all learn having lipedema, any kind of chronic illness really, that to become small because we're so sick of hearing the complaint from ourselves that we don't want to be having the same repetition. all the time with the people that are around us and bring the mood down or cancel the plans again or, So we kind of get a little small, we're fine, we're fine, we're fine. No, it's fine, it's fine. And then try not to complain.
Try not to complain.
And it's isolating. It's isolating. So when I went through all of that myself, I really understood how much value that would have brought to me had I've had access to that. And I didn't know where to find it. And I think I could have had a much, I'm not going to say an easier time because it's still all rough what we go through, but I think it could have really softened the experience for me. And I don't know if have you ever seen that cartoon animated movie called Robots?
I love that movie.
I haven't watched it.
Oh, it's one of my favorites.
Peter. He says in there, and I remember this from when I watched it a million years ago, he said, if you see a need, fill a need. And I saw the need. And I thought, along with a few other things in life that ended up lining up to get to this point, to do all the stuff to get qualified and become the counsellor, it all kind of lined up. And, looking at where I wanted to be supportive, that was number one, because I saw the giant gaping hole in it. So, yeah, it's something that means something to me because I could see how much I remember craving that and not having access to it. So, yeah, that's kind of my long-winded story.
Yeah, that's perfect. And like you were saying at the start of that, like you can be so prepared for surgery. They give you so much information. You can read everything about the practical side of what's going to happen, but you can't prepare for the emotional side because we all react differently. But having that support person there, having someone you can turn to, that's invaluable.
And not just for surgery, the diagnosis part as well is huge because you can look up all the things that you should be doing physically. And you mentioned this, Jess, all the like you focus on the physical things and the psychological stuff gets put to the side, but it can't because it comes up to the surface and then you feel a bit lost.
And even the conservative management, like that list you get, that takes a mental load.
Sure does.
Yeah.
Just and then you feel like you're not living up to it because you can't reach it all and you can't do it all. And that just exacerbates throughout your whole life.
Yeah,
your whole life. It affects everything.
And I think, we kind of latch onto the idea when we have all of these, like forget about surgery, even if that's not on, the table or an option, but even the whole conservative stuff, for me personally, pre-diagnosis, I was like, okay, so there must be a fix for this. There must be a solution for this. I just haven't found it. So I just tried everything. And I think that still carries over once you've got your diagnosis of like, okay, well, there's got to be something that helps. There's got to be something that I can do to slow the progression or reduce the pain. So you can get a little stuck in a vortex again of trying to control it, because when we feel so out of control with a body that's not responding to us, like, listen to me, and it's not, we try to create that sense of control around us by, monitoring everything. But that can get unhealthy too, because you can get super obsessed with tracking, managing, and looking at what spikes lipedema. Yes, we know about the hormonal blah, 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 but stress.
Yeah.
Stress. So then when we are dealing with lipedema, we can get a little obsessed, and you might even notice it on the Facebook groups that there's always a question of like, okay, but what diet? What's the best diet? And I'm no dietitian, so I don't give any recommendations at all. But if you're eating the most perfect thing that's going to absolutely halt your lipedema progression forever, but you are in hyperdrive alert, panic, then your stress levels are going to be up, and you're going to bring on lipedema from your stress.
Yeah, it's not the whole story. There's nothing that's the whole story.
Yeah. So it's learning that balance, which is really hard when we just want something to work. But learning how to navigate going through obsessive thoughts about and guilt about, well, I ate that thing and I shouldn't because, I had, and it's my fault, blame, guilt, shame. And then also not just around the emotional toll and burden and weight of it all, but all of the things that people feel they don't know who to talk about this to, and they don't know how to say it, and they feel ashamed. But even the intimacy side of things, there is a lot of body shame, and that can come from when you're, a teenager and you get picked on at school, or, someone even well-meaning points out your differences, or that can build, and we carry that self-belief and that shame that we tuck under, and then when we are with a person that, and that it might not just be true intimacy in a romantic situation, but it can also be coming up in moments, that shame can come up in moments of like going out with girlfriends for brunch and looking at what are they eating, what am I eating, and like, if I eat that, if I eat those chips, or if I have that burger, if I have that glass of wine, then not only am I going to be bad for my body, but then are they going to think this is why I'm like this?
Yeah.
Is this, are they judging me? Are they like, oh, well, don't complain that you're like this, you're going to eat like, is this how they think I got like this, So, all of those things it touches every part of our body, every
Yeah.
part of our life, like, so I think it would be helpful to have someone who gets it,
Yeah.
not completely, but to be able to share those things with, because a person who's not in love with their body and really struggling with it and is not going to talk to someone who they perceive to be a little Elle Macpherson body,
Yeah.
like, because can't relate,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that lived experience relatability, as well as having the tools to support. And also sometimes it's easier for people to talk to a professional counselor than to offload even to a friend, because they don't have to worry about looking after the counselor and
Mhm.
managing
Yeah.
that person's feelings, and, oh, but what if I was a burden? Or maybe she wanted to talk about her this week, but she's having problems with,
So
whereas
true.
like you're paying that person and they're dealing with it, like that's, so I think there is a freedom in that as well. And if you really got embarrassed and you really didn't like it and you felt terrible, then bye, never see them again. So there's that too.
Yeah.
That's right. Well, you really have to vibe with your care team. We're all so different and individual, and we all have different expectations of what our care team needs to provide to us, like emotionally as well as physically. So that doesn't mean every person is going to be for everyone, but it is nice. That added layer of lived experience, I find, is as someone who's an empath, then speaking to an empath, like and not to say that everybody who has lived experience has empathy, but it's different. It's a different kind of knowing, and then therefore you feel like it's a different kind of seeing you,
Yes.
a more intimate kind of seeing you. But it was Jess, you mentioned having the right tools, and that was a beautiful segue to the next question, because I'm really curious to dig into some of those approaches and tools that you use that you find make the biggest difference, and not just in the women you support, but in yourself as well, in terms of reconnecting with your body, their sense of self, your sense of self, etc.
Yeah. I think, if you think about tools and you think about, someone who works with tools, a carpenter, for example, a good carpenter doesn't just own a hammer. A good carpenter has a toolbox, and not every job will require a hammer. So I think having a variety, and not, I think what I really try to do, and try, sometimes fail, but what I really try to do is not have a preconceived set of ideas of like, this person has this person has this, and look at them as their diagnosis or as the thing that I think the issue is, but instead look at them as a whole and as a whole story and all of it, and then bring in what tool is needed in the moment, tailor it to because you might need a certain thing on a certain day and a certain thing another day. Maybe you need a little tough love one day, and maybe you need a lot of compassion another, even if it's the same person. So I think having a variety of tools to tailor to the person is, I think, has, in my experience, has been the most effective. But some of those things, a lot of the time, for especially chronic illness, and so I have some specialties as it's chronic illness, lipedema, working with teens. Everyone says I'm crazy. I love them. Miscarriage and infant loss. I used to do a lot of work with Thread Nose as well, so the grief hotlines. So I'd like to bring that back in a little bit too, and also carer burnout. So yeah, but looking at and so spreading that across who I'm looking after, but specifically for chronic illness, lipedema, compassion. In a world full of coldness and critical and comparisons and performance, I think it's so simple that it feels too simple, but just sitting with someone and allowing them to just and let it completely out in a place that they don't have to perform, and being with them, I think, is so powerful that sometimes that is worth more than whatever words I might come up with after. And teaching them what compassion looks like, what empathy looks like, how to work with. We're very critical. We're so critical. How to catch, monitor a little bit, and reframe, which takes so much effort and time, and it's hard, and it's something that I'm still doing daily. Those I find to be very effective tools specifically for chronic illness, and I think also just the freedom of not having to perform and not having to care about someone else's, saying it in such a way so that you don't come across as a whinger, or you don't come across as ungrateful. Or I mentioned something, I did my back in a couple of weeks ago, and I was having a little sook about it because I'd finally taken a little bit of time off work. And of course, the first thing I did was back into bed, laying at the ceiling and looking at the ceiling for 6 days straight. And then I was doing a little bit better, and I met up with a friend, and I said, sometimes it's like, what's the point of trying to take time off? Because you take time off and you end up stuck in bed. And well-meaning, beautiful friend said, come on, don't be so negative. And you learn in those little moments who you can be real with and who you have to perform with. And it's the slightest thing. And that's a beautiful friend who I love. But the impact is it's not safe to do that around you. It's not.
You've got to censor yourself.
Yeah.
And I think we just keep seeing, learning, doing that with everyone around us. So I think having a counselling session where you are free, it's kind of exciting to just be free.
Yeah.
And be validated. I think that is probably the biggest impact.
Yeah, I love that. And I would, as someone who, I'm an outward processor, so I need to say it in order to release it, in order to hear it back and process it, which is why I talk a lot, which is why we have a podcast. So great.
Fantastic.
But as you said, that outward processing is burdensome to people. And so having people in your care team that can take on that burden, because that's what they're there to do, is much easier than relying on your friends and family to always carry that burden for you.
Yeah.
And, going back to the tools, some people, like you said, you process by outwardly saying, some people really like to learn why we're doing something, how it works, the education side of it. And for those people, I will talk about, okay, so this is a therapy, we're going to do this therapy, we're going to do that, we're going to try this, so that they feel there's a sense of control and they can go read up about it or whatever. And that sometimes works. But it, again, sometimes I'm finding that's still a load, a mental load, to have to think about all of those things or to learn about those things. So I find that I tend to not talk about all the strategies and how things work. It's almost like, the puppet that, like pulling the strings, like, just look at the puppet. Don't worry about this. Who's the person pulling the strings? You don't need to have that load. So I try not to, unless I see a person who thrives in that environment to I try to just, you don't need to know the why. We're just doing the thing now.
Yep.
Yeah. Again,
Nice. I like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I do waver in how and the why and the what's it called and the what evidence it's behind it and stuff. And then I'm like, I just want to trust the process. It's very different how I show up sometimes. It's no, I need this critical eye. I want to understand how it might work. And sometimes I'm like, oh, just fucking help me. Just help. I don't know. I don't care. Just do whatever you got to do to help.
And it's sometimes learning to, everybody does things in different ways, and day to day it can change. So I put a little thing on my Instagram the other day. One of my clients was mentioning how she's been very anxious, and that she'd been reading and learning that breathing exercises, box breathing and meditation. She's like, I'm failing at breathing. How am I failing at breathing? And I'm like, I know, I fail at breathing too. I've been doing it since birth, but still, what works for some people, and it can work beautifully for some people to feel like they are calm and zen. But for other people like me with ADHD, you want me to lie still, breathe, close my eyes and think about nothing,
Yeah.
I've got like 50 million tabs running in here. You want
Totally.
to like delete that? Like that's not happening. So I find it really agitating. I'm like in a mood when you're going to make me lie still and not think. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So, but when people are sometimes told this strategy, this way, this tool works, and it doesn't for them, it can spiral them into I'm failing in a whole other way now.
Yeah.
So that's why I look at the person and I say, what are you doing right now? So, the alternative to that, which is something that I do for myself, instead of trying to lie still and breathe, sounds ridiculous, but shake it out. So it can be really embarrassing. So I recommend close your door. Put down the blinds. Don't stand in front of a mirror. Don't do that to yourself. Turn the light off, face the other way, put your headphones on and put on whatever gets you going. I don't recommend too much angry unless you really need a release, and not sad. But, my go-to is Bohemian Rhapsody. Yeah. Nothing goes through the emotions like Bohemian Rhapsody.
Yeah, literally.
And just you can dance, you can shake, you can flap your arms around, you can whatever, but just move so that all that adrenaline, all of the cortisol kind of has an escape. That can work. But for someone who is very logical and centered and wants this, that can be horrible. So each person, tailor it, each day, tailor it, and go with what works and not to feel like you're a failure because we'll just pivot and try something else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love that. I was just, while you were talking, I was just looking up when we had you on our podcast because it was like the first season, I'm pretty sure. And I looked up, it was episode 42 of the podcast. And you're going to be your episode 134. So almost 100 episodes ago, we had you on, Jess, talking about your own experience with lipedema. If you want to hear more of Jess's story with her experience with her own personal lipedema, today we're obviously concentrating on your journey through supporting women as a counsellor. Check out episode 42 from all that time ago.
Long time ago.
Yeah.
I'm curious though, Jess, I want to go to the future and I want you to be a little bit idealistic. What do you imagine the future of support for women with lipedema might look like?
So I can wave my magic wand.
Please wave it.
Fairy godmother?
Yeah.
I don't know, I got two.
Yeah.
It's a maraca and a wand.
Yeah.
So I think everything would really change if we got early diagnosis, if this thing was classed as valid. So how? You catch someone early, they don't have as much time to build that ingrained shame spiral. I am this identity. They don't have to get to the point where they are in so much pain physically, so that can, that pain really weighs on your mental health. I think if we catch it early, then we catch all of it early. It doesn't have to be so big. So my magic wand is that somehow someone with the brains bigger than mine is going to go, bling, we understand the genetics and everything is done, and Medicare goes, yes. And that frees up also people's finances because it's damn expensive to be covering everything we have to cover. And then maybe people will have a little bit more income so that they can put that onto a counsellor to support them through their mental health too, because I get it that it's expensive and I couldn't do it all either. So I think my magic wand is expenses are covered, acknowledgement from early. It's a valid thing, so we're not getting gaslit still. And we have a open communication support system for all us ladies who are not just for lipedema, but all of the stupid comorbidities and chronic illnesses that come with it. That all of that can get supported. And that's a long-winded wave of a wand.
That sounds good. Sign me up.
Yep.
I'm on board.
Sign us up.
Yeah.
I'm there.
All right, Jess, that is the end of your interview today.
Yeah.
So
Thank
where
you
can
so
the lipedema community find you?
I have a website called journeywithjess.au, Jess with one S.
Mm.
And if you book with me, I'll tell you the story why it's one S.
Yes.
I know, and
That's
it will
a
put it
teaser.
all in your mind. And also on social media, you can find me Journey with Jess, and give me a like and a follow and a share and all that stuff so that people can know I exist. Yeah, reach out. I'd love to help and support if I'm the type of person that you vibe with. great. But also, little plug, Shelley over there is also a counsellor, and she's someone that you should be
Yes,
diving
thank you,
into.
darling.
She
Jess
is.
and I do support each other,
Yeah.
Yes.
and we will be looking at doing our supervision together as well to make sure that we stay up to date with all the latest findings in the
Yep.
world of counselling.
And
So
support
good.
through it all. So
I'll
yeah,
put all your details in the show notes too,
Yep.
so people can easily just click and find you.
yeah. And I think that's the important thing is, not everyone's for everyone. Not everything works for everyone. So find what works for you. And if that seems like something, if I seem like that person, fantastic. And if not, hopefully you'll have more options. Like
Yeah,
Yes.
more
totally.
people popping up in the
Yeah, we
community.
need more people. And as I think, Jess, you said one other time, there's room for everybody.
Yeah, there
There's
is.
There
room
is a room for everybody at this table of support.
And we
Come join us. The more the merrier.
Yay.
thank you so much, ladies, for all you do. We're
Thank you, Jess.
Thanks, Jess. It's so great that you have gone from lived experience to empowering yourself and others by taking care of this community in that special way. So well done to you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Bye, Jess.
Bye.
The Lipoedema Podcast 2025 is powered by Elegance Lymphatic Care. Lipoedema and its symptoms vary from individual to individual. The opinions and advice voiced in this podcast are of a personal nature and used for educational purposes.
Please take away from this podcast what resonates with you, and please see your GP or preferred specialist for diagnosis and healthcare. We are Shelley and Tiana from the Lipoedema Podcast. Until our next episode, bye for now.
Lipoedema and its symptoms vary from individual to individual. The opinions and advice voiced in this podcast are of a personal nature and used for educational purposes.
Please take away from this podcast what resonates with you, and please see your GP or preferred specialist for diagnosis and healthcare. We are Shelley and Tiana from the Lipoedema Podcast. Until our next episode, bye for now.
Did you know you can support the Lipoedema Podcast just by using our affiliate links?
When you shop the products and services we recommend on our website, we may earn a small commission at no extra cost to you. Every dollar goes straight back into creating more episodes, more stories, and more resources for our community.
We only share things that we genuinely use and love. To browse our listener special offers, head to the lipoedemapodcast.com.au.
Quite